Tonight, a hasty evacuation forces residents of Churchill Falls to leave home as a wildfire creeps closer to the town.
We've seen fires before, but they've never amounted to this.
It just felt surreal, like it was in a movie set or something.
You could see the fire in the background, and in front of you could see this great big storm heading towards Goose Bay.
I pray that we all make it home and be safe.
Hundreds flood into Happy Valley Goose Bay, packing up their belongings at a moment's notice and heading to safety.
Last night, dozens of people slept here at the gym of the YMCA, but tonight they won't be. I'm Peter Cowan. I'm live in the community, and I'll tell you why coming up on Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to a special edition of Here and Now as we follow the developing situation in Labrador this evening where 7 forest fires are burning. About 750 people got word last night to leave their homes and they had to do it fast. Here and Now's Peter Cowan is live tonight at the YMCA in Happy Valley Goose Bay. It's ground zero and a hub for Churchill Falls evacuees in need of help. So Peter, what's going on there now?
Yeah, last night this is where 500 people showed up in order to check in and make sure they made it out of the community safely. And there were about 80 or so people who were here at the gym and sleeping on some of these mattresses that were brought in from the Muskrat Falls camp. But tonight, as you can see, the workers are actually starting to tear the place down because what's happened is the community has really come together to do whatever they can to support these people. So it's been with things like offering meals and food today, dropping those things off, but it's also been offers from complete strangers who have a spare bedroom, a cabin, a trailer, anywhere that they can keep some of these people. And I chatted with one guy today who came from Churchill Falls. He had his family with him, he had his dog, so because of the dog, he wasn't able to stay in the shelter last night, but that's okay. He ran into a complete stranger who offered him a place to stay.
A center where people are going to gather and just say, hey, you know what? I've got something to offer and you're welcome to it. And that really is important. And I think if everybody, I guess we all do that and we all do it in different ways, but it's really what makes us get through difficult times.
Everyone here has been anxious about the latest on the fire situation. We got an update today from the Premier and officials who said the fire is still out of control. It's only a couple kilometers from the community, but it's south of the Churchill River. So that river is acting as a break. And as long as the winds come out of the north or northwest, that should keep it away from the community. But of course, we're dealing with Mother Nature, and that can always change.
The risk is if it jumps the river, and the biggest driver of whether it'll jump the river or not is the wind patterns. And so right now there's a favorable wind pattern, but we live in Newfoundland and Labrador. Winds change all the time.
A lot of the people here are thinking about those who weren't able to evacuate. There is a small crew that's been left at the Churchill Falls generating station because, of course, keeping that running isn't just important for keeping the lights on here in Labrador, but also into Quebec and beyond. And so I talked to one woman today whose husband is one of the operators who's still back in Churchill Falls, still working in order to keep the power going. And while it's an important job, it's an anxious time for her.
He's home resting, so he has another shift to do, and as long as the fire stays away, I'm good. And from what he told me this morning, there's no fire in town. And it's not too bad, I guess, due to the winds. So I'm concerned about him. I'm worried. Wish he was here with us, but he has to do his job to keep the plant running and help his co-workers. So I pray that we all make it home and be safe.
Everyone here has been optimistic, hoping that they might be able to go home soon. So probably the hardest news for people who were watching that update today was to hear the Premier say it's unlikely that over the next 24 or even 48 hours they'll be able to lift this evacuation order. It's, of course, all up to Mother Nature. Reporting live in Happy Valley Goose Bay, I'm Peter Cowan for Here and Now.
And there is a province-wide fire ban in effect this evening. The Premier says all available resources need to focus on the fires in Labrador. Now, that ban includes backyard fires, charcoal barbecues, and fireworks. There are now 7 active fires burning in Labrador. The fire that prompted last night's evacuation is about 6 kilometers southwest of Churchill Falls, southwest of the Churchill River. Officials say that fire grew especially volatile yesterday evening which triggered the call to get residents out fast. Robert Daw made the harrowing journey through thunder and lightning.
It was just one spot where the sky lit up in front of us and made a lot of people feel a bit on edge. I mean, we're already in a tense spot and driving down, and then to go through this was high winds, a lot of lightning. There was heavy rain at times. What was coming to mind was, I think it was 2016 maybe in Fort Mac, when everyone was evacuating, and see the same thing, lineups at gas stations, people driving through, the smoke. And that's what reminded me of. Just felt surreal, like it was in a movie set or something.
The reality is an additional water bomber wouldn't have changed this particular scenario. We are committed to fixing that water bomber. We're making progress on it. Would we like to have it? Sure.
Well, that's the Premier fielding questions from reporters today in St. John's, saying another water bomber would not have made a difference. 4 of the province's water bombers have been deployed to Labrador, while a 5th water bomber remains out of service. That aircraft hasn't been available since 2018, but the MHA for Labrador West says a 5th aircraft would be an asset.
Every asset operating makes a difference. If you have 4 planes, you have 5 planes. Every asset makes a difference, especially when time is key. I refute that claim that the 5th water bomber would have been a great asset in this situation right now. And remember, we have 7 fires burning. We have 1 in Churchill Falls. We are still active work on the one in Menhek Dam. We've had 2 large pieces of hydro infrastructure completely threatened by forest fires in a very short period of time. Yes, a 5th water bomber would absolutely be necessary and key in the situation.
Now, the province is asking for extra support to help fight those Labrador fires. The Minister of Fisheries, Forestry and Agriculture wants more air support, more water bombers, and more help on the ground.
Additional fire suppression support has been and is required. Forestry officials have been in contact with the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre. The process is to make a request, and that request has been made for aerial support consisting of 2 to 4 water bombers, along with additional helicopters and specialized incident management team resources consisting of a fire behavioral analysis specialist and an ignition specialist.
Meantime, volunteers are hard at work housing, feeding, and supporting the hundreds of people displaced by the fires. Radio Canada's Patrick Butler spoke with the Salvation Army about its role in the relief effort. He also spoke with an evacuee about the reception he received when he arrived.
Well, right now we're in our EDS truck, our Emergency Disaster Services truck, parked at the YMCA in Happy Valley Goose Bay, and we are serving coffee, tea, juice, water, and grilled cheese sandwiches. Later to come, hamburgers and hot dogs to the people that are stuck in the YMCA from the fires at Churchill.
How many people have you served today?
Probably about 70, I'd say, 70, 75 around there.
And why are you doing this? Why is it important for you to be out here feeding these people who are stuck in Goose Bay?
That's what we're about. That's what the Salvation Army is about. We are about helping people in need, and that's just what God's love is about.
Churchill Falls never ceases to amaze me. I mean, the people that are there, it is a total community. The people that work together, they live together, they raise their families together. So, I mean, everybody is not one person. It was everybody as a whole in the community. So when I got there, I was told that there was school buses and everything for transportation for people who didn't have any vehicles. And then just sort of like everybody stayed in conjunction and in a line all the way to Goose Bay here. So it was pretty neat to see like 100 vehicles in front of you and 100 vehicles behind you, and everybody sort of sticking together. And if somebody broke down, you'd see somebody pull over, and everybody's helping each other out, which is needed in a time like this, right? So.
Staying with gestures of support, there has been an absolute outpouring of support ever since yesterday evening when the evacuation order came down. So let's return now to the YMCA in Happy Valley Goose Bay. The CBC's Heidi Adder has been there since yesterday evening. Heidi, you were there on site before even the evacuees arrived. So can you talk to us about how volunteers jumped into action?
Absolutely. So the people in Churchill Falls had 45 minutes to pack up everything important to them and hit the road. And volunteers here, okay, that gave them 2 hours. We got to get set up. We got to get ready. They had a row of tables ready to welcome people and make sure that they had everything that they needed. They had cots and mattresses prepped here, snacks and water. The SPCA was set up with dog food, cat litter, litter boxes, anything they could think of, you know, music playing on the speakers, and just wanting to create a place where people felt like, okay, you know what, you're here now and you're safe here, even if it is only for a little bit. You're safe here for now despite everything else going on.
Sounds like so much goodwill happening there. And can you tell us what it was like when the people actually started arriving? What sorts of stories did you hear?
I lost track of the amount of people I talked to last night. Basically, everyone had stories that they wanted to share, and there were a lot of tears. There were a lot of hugs when different cars would pull up and people would embrace each other that, okay, we both made it here. We're good now. We're here. It's going to be okay. There were so many family members making sure that people were accounted for, but also a lot of smiles, a lot of positive attitudes, a lot of thinking about how clothes, items, the little trinkets that we keep in our house that seem so important to us, you know, on the day-to-day, that can be rebought. But you can't replace other things, and how those items are what truly matters, and it's important that they're safe. Now here's one mother and daughter that I spoke to, and who, despite it all, they're remaining incredibly hopeful for the future.
We basically were sitting with friends next door when we got the text saying that we had approximately about an hour and a half, I guess, and we had to evacuate. So it was at that point that we just did what we had to do and got on the road.
I was just like trying to pack everything, and I don't even know if I have everything packed. I don't have socks. I did not pack any socks.
We've seen fires before, but they've never amounted to this. So we didn't really think that it was a possibility, I guess, or we didn't want to think it was a possibility until it actually hit home when people were saying, well, this could be bad. Then when we got here, we had a full brigade of people checking us. Out in the rain. You know, it's just heartwarming.
It was just nice to be able to know that, like, we were in an emergency. Nobody was hurt, but they were still willing to help. And, like, here, like, look at the people.
Yeah.
There's so many people out just on Facebook, making sure people have houses to live in if they need to, right?
And people that don't even know us, right? So it's nice to know that, you know, with all the different things that go on in the world, it's still a good place.
And of course, people still aren't able to return home today. So Heidi, what have they been doing in the meantime, and how has the community been supporting these hundreds of new residents?
Well, it's been a huge effort. You know, people opened up their homes, their cabins, their campers. So while we're at the YMCA, where there's still mattresses and cots for now, there's not going to be anyone staying here tonight. Everyone is taken care of in a private place where, you know, they can stay and they can be safe and be comfortable. And while that's happening at the same time, the local movie theater has a free showing for anyone from Churchill Falls. The Labrador Interpretation Center, Labrador Campus have opened up for anyone from Churchill Falls to come in and, you know, spend some time, check things out. There's a number of places offering help. Our local thrift shop is even saying if you're from Churchill Falls and you don't have enough clothes, you need anything, come by, take it for free, along with personal hygiene items. It's been a huge community effort to make sure that everyone is taken care of and that they have things to do as well. You know, it's been an overwhelming amount of support as we continue to watch what unfolds west of us. But at least for now, you know, these people have places to go, things to do, and at least for now here, they're taken care of. For Here and Now, I'm Heidi Adder in Happy Valley, Goose Bay.
Time for a check of your forecast. Ryan Snodden here in for Ashley this evening, and obviously the focus on Churchill Falls and the forecast there. Not good news in terms of the winds. Tonight through tomorrow, you can see staying quite gusty. Temperatures cooler for Friday. The winds easing as we move throughout the weekend. No wet weather really though. A few isolated shower chances in the overnight Saturday into Sunday in particular, but overall it's a dry forecast really. Even if we see the showers, it won't be enough. Temperatures there, 23 the high today. And how about the heat? Yes, more records broken today across the island, 30 in St. John's. And yes, you can see low to mid 30s in through central parts of the island. But this cold front is going to bring some relief. It pushes through overnight tonight. A fresher air mass moving in for tomorrow. And again, as we work our way into the weekend, watching maybe a few shower chances in through Churchill Falls for Saturday night. And this is going to be the round we're watching right here. But perhaps some wetter weather coming in as we push our way into early next week. So some good news there. And that'll actually be pushing in all across the province. We'll break that down with your full forecast details coming up in just a few minutes. Carolyn?
Thanks so much, Ryan. Well, in other news, a night of random violence and terror has landed a St. John's man more than 6 years in prison. Jonathan Hurley was sentenced this morning for a pair of horrific home invasions in September of 2022 that left one man stabbed and an elderly couple battered. The CBC's Ryan Cook reports.
Two brutal home invasions gave Jonathan Hurley enough money to buy drugs for a night and enough criminal charges to spend 6.5 years in prison. Justice Peter O'Flaherty handed down the sentence this morning, a joint recommendation from the Crown and Defence. Hurley, along with Justin Haynes, broke into two random homes that night. Hurley stabbed a man at the first house before taking off with a Honda Civic. The pair drove to another house where they assaulted an 88-year-old woman and her 90-year-old husband. Haynes pleaded guilty last year and was sentenced to 5.5 years in prison. Hurley, meanwhile, took his case to trial, which got off to a rocky start when Haynes testified that he acted alone, that Hurley wasn't even there. Recognizing this was patently false, the judge allowed Haynes' original police statement to be entered into evidence, in which he said it was Hurley who led the charge that night. Hurley apologized to the victims today, saying crack cocaine had made him a different man. But this wasn't his first rodeo. He'd been convicted of 3 prior break-and-enters and 2 robberies. Today, he said he hopes people can forgive him someday, but the victim sitting behind him shook her head no. Ryan Cook, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, a local wildlife rescue group is concerned about the well-being of the eaglet in the nest near the Cuckold's Cove Trail in St. John's. The baby eagle appears to have plastic wrapped around its feet. It's hard to tell from a distance, but the white material you see there in the nest is a long piece of plastic that's apparently wrapped around the feet of the eaglet. Karen Goss of the Rock Wildlife Rescue Group says the bird is not yet old enough to fly and is still being fed by its parents, but if the plastic is not removed somehow, the bird will be in trouble.
The issue is when the time comes that he's going to fledge, the time comes that he's going to try to learn to fly. And the foot itself, I mean, we've gone up into crow's nests where there's been twine and things wrapped around the feet of the young crows in the same situation, and it causes deformities if it gets tighter and tighter. So the question is, you know, intervention should be earlier rather than later if we want to help this bird, because he won't be able to leave, he won't be able to migrate.
Well, it's a sure sign that summer has begun in St. John's. The annual downtown pedestrian mall opened up today with a bulk of Water Street now closed to most traffic. The popular pedestrian mall is up and running for another year. It's the 4th year now that the city has closed one of the main downtown streets. There are some new additions this year, markets on Water featuring local vendors and artists, as well as music on Water Street and public art covering street poles. The pedestrian mall will run until September.
We want to try to attract as many people down here as we can, and that's visitors, but it's also residents. We don't want this to get stale. This is a bright, shining light in the city, I feel like, and for downtown, and we want to support residents and also the business owners. And we've heard from them that you bring people down here, you open up the street to pedestrians, and it increases business by a lot. So we're doing everything we can to, like I said, to listen and to act on that. We do take away parking when this happens, and we want to make sure that we find that really nice balance between enjoying as much of the summer as we can. We find sometimes on the shoulder months when we get past, middle of September, end of September into October, the weather, as you know, is a little unpredictable. So this seems to be working right now, but we were always open for changes in the future. Who knows?
Just to see that outpouring of you are not, all the hotels are full because there's other things going on, but you are not going to be without a nice place to sleep.
Well, still to come, we return to Happy Valley Goose Bay for more with a man who was forced to pack up and leave Churchill Falls and found a place to sleep with the kindness of strangers.
Our hot and muggy air mass is on the way out. This cold front ushering in a much fresher air mass for Friday and into the weekend. Your full forecast details are coming up. Time for a check of your full forecast. Ryan Snodden in for Ashley this evening. And boy, Talking about the heat, obviously to start things off here, 30 in Mary's Harbor today, 26 in Happy Valley Goose Bay. Most of the 30s here found through central parts of the island, even up towards Bonavista Vista at 28 today, Twillingate at 29, St. John's at 30 degrees. And yes, there is some relief in sight. And you can see where the frontal boundary is, right? 30 from St. John's all the way back to Toronto and down to DC and Chicago at 29. And that cooler, drier air has been pushing its way in through Labrador today and over northern Quebec. That is going to be pushing its way in and across the entire province as we do move through tonight. There's the front as we speak, bringing some showers, maybe a few rumbles of thunder tonight across central parts of the island. We'll be watching for that. And then this front again will sink to the south. And we're going to be looking at, well, let's time it out for you. We'll show you those shower chances through this evening along the frontal boundary. Nothing too severe from that, but could hear a few rumbles of thunder, so just be mindful of that. By 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, lingering chance of a shower across the Avalon Peninsula. Everywhere else, pretty much precip free for tomorrow. We will be watching, again, those shower chances pretty much anywhere tonight. Overnight lows will drop into the single digits, Nain back to Labrador City. Most of us, though, into the double digits. Straits and St. Anthony, maybe around 9 degrees tonight. Temperatures, again, around 11 or 10 degrees for the metro area. For tomorrow, that chance of a shower in St. John's through the early going, and then looking at a mix of sun and cloud. Winds becoming light tomorrow, so really quite a lovely day. Temperatures much cooler, but I think likely welcomed for many folks as well. Could see the clouds kick up from time to time. And again, notably for the Churchill Falls forecast, as we mentioned earlier in the program, that wind is going to be gusting 50, maybe 60 kilometers per hour at times tomorrow. So an unfavorable forecast wind-wise, but at least temperatures are a bit cooler across western Labrador for tomorrow. Those westerly winds along the west coast will keep temperatures feeling a little bit cooler, but we will push into the 20s, as you can see there, through central. Now, as we look into the Saturday time period, maybe a couple of isolated shower chances right here across first Labrador and then into Newfoundland, but this is less than 30% that we will see those shower chances in the 30 to 40% range. But certainly the risk is there. St. John's is more of a late day risk on Saturday, but certainly the possibility is there. So make sure you have that in the back of your mind for in case you do have outdoor plans on Saturday. So there's that risk that will linger into Saturday evening. By the time we get to Sunday, area of high pressure is still kind of dominating across the province to start the day, and then it's building clouds throughout the day. This wet weather moving in across the Maritimes looks like, based on the timing right now, that it's going to hold off until Sunday evening before it pushes in. Now, the other thing to note here is that it is going to also push the muggy air back in as well. So let's time the mugginess. Note the dry air through Labrador sinks in through Newfoundland, and our dew points really drop off for Saturday. Much drier air mass in place. That remains the case for Sunday. And then as that next system pushes in Monday into Tuesday, we will see those dew points jumping up a little bit, and that'll be with that moisture that's coming back in. Monday into Tuesday, those shower chances certainly increasing. We will be looking at, again, isolated risk tomorrow morning, and then again Saturday into the afternoon for St. John's and eastern parts of Newfoundland. Now, for central parts of the island, shower chances Saturday. Looking at Monday, that should read 24 degrees. My mistake on that. 25 for the west coast, and you can see for western Newfoundland, 23 for Monday. Pretty good weekend, though. Western Newfoundland, maybe just a slight risk Saturday morning as that little wave is going to be pushing through, so keep that in mind. Shower chances for eastern Labrador on Monday, and again, Lab West, really not looking at any wet weather. The possibility of a shower Saturday night, but really going to have to wait till Tuesday there, so we'll be keeping you posted on that forecast over the next few days. That is your forecast to now. Caroline.
Thanks so much, Ryan. Well, let's return now to Happy Valley Goose Bay, which has been flooded with hundreds of people fleeing the fires. One of them is Ashley Billard, who evacuated with his family, including his dog. And as he tells Here and Now's Peter Cowan, the family found unexpected shelter.
So first of all, take me back to last night. What was it like when you got the word that you were going to need to evacuate?
I did sort of mention earlier, you know, I've kind of talk about it to everybody, is you see people evacuate on TV and on news and you think, oh, well, I'll do better than that. I'll be prepared. But we got 7:30, we got the notice to be gone at 8:15. And, you know, it's a bit of a panic. You're running around, you're trying to, I really don't know what we got. We got some socks and underwear and shirts, and the boys got some clothes. And, you know, we bought it's funny that everybody goes for the pictures. We bought some pictures and a hard drive, like a little external hard drive that I know I got some pictures on, family pictures. So grab that, grab some snacks and hit the road.
How anxious was it for you knowing that, you know, you were driving to Goose Bay, but you weren't quite sure what was going to come next?
We tried to, I guess, you know, in a lot of ways similar to the pandemic, when you try to make the best of it for the kids and we make jokes and laugh, but we're going into a lightning storm, severe thunder and lightning storm, absolutely apocalyptic weather, rain, darkness. And then it starts to sort of settle in, like we don't have hotels, there's no hotels booked, there's no time to book hotels, there's no hotels to book because there's other things going on. Evacuation is unplanned. So it got apprehensive, I guess, you know, but we knew we were going to the Y. We had that information. We knew that our tribe was going, our group of people, our whole town was going to meet up. So we thought, you know, at least we'll get information. We'll be able to build a plan from there. When we got there, it was phenomenal. When we drove out of the storm, to see the sea of volunteers at the checkpoint with the flashlights waving us on. Traffic stopped at Hamilton Avenue to allow us, or Hamilton Road, to allow us to traverse into the highway to make our way to the YMCA. And then a legion of people at the YMCA to help us. Really amazing.
So you got to the YMCA, you were kind of preparing yourself to hunker down there for the night. So what happened after that?
Our cots were there. We got 4 together, so as a family unit, we knew the dog was going to be in the car, and that was worrisome for us. But it was a cool night, and we had arrangements to make sure that the dog was looked after. But things weren't necessarily ideal. But we're tired, frustrated, worried. But then Teresa had come to me. Well, the boys came to me and said, "Hey, you know, Mom found some accommodations," and that's when we came across Ingrid Crocker, who was there, basically showed up to volunteer her house. And said she had a couple of rooms, and that really made a big difference to us.
Aside from sort of the physical needs, like the showers and the beds, what does it mean to you to have people who are willing to sort of take that leap of faith and open their homes to others?
I think it's fantastic, and it's fantastic that for one thing, the 3 communities of Lab City, Churchill, and Goose Bay are really well interconnected for the distances that separate them. So that's great, from hockey tournaments to anything else, and now to this evacuation. So to know that somebody out there, especially when all 3 of us are in isolated communities on our own, and to know that one of those other communities will really step up and look out for us, that's you know, that makes the vastness of Labrador a little bit smaller.
Well, it's a bit hard to spot from a distance, but the eaglet down in the nest here at Cuckles Cove has some plastic wrapped around its legs. It's a very distressing situation for people like Karen Goss of the Rock Wildlife Rescue Group. We'll talk more about that coming up. We're here at the Cuckold's Cove Trail near the Eagle's Nest, where a distressing situation is unfolding. The eaglet, the baby eagle in the nest, has plastic wrapped around its legs right now. And joining me now to talk more about this situation is Karen Goss with Rock Wildlife Rescue Group. So Karen, can you tell us what's happening with the eaglet right now? What are you seeing down there in the nest?
Right now, the eaglet in the nest has a sheet of plastic wrapped around one of its legs. It's a few feet wide and at least 5 or 6 feet long, and it's wrapped multiple times around the leg and hanging down out of the nest. So the parents can't get it off, the eaglet can't get it off. So right now, we're just wondering what to do.
Yeah. Is there anything that can be done to help the situation?
Not by us. We would love to help, but we are not permitted for intervention of birds of prey. So a call has gone in by myself and by other people to request some help for the eaglet, for some intervention. The issue is when the time comes that he's going to fledge, the time comes that he's going to try to learn to fly, and the foot itself. I mean, we've gone up into crow's nests where there's been twine and things wrapped around the feet of the young crows in the same situation, and it causes deformities if it gets tighter and tighter. So the question is, you know, intervention should be earlier rather than later if we want to help this bird, because he won't be able to leave, he won't be able to migrate.
What would be the reasons not to intervene?
Some people think let nature take its course, but that really doesn't apply to this situation, because a sheet of plastic in an eagle's nest is not nature, and that's us. That's our garbage. So this is something that we caused and something that we owe it to them to try to fix. It's difficult to get to. You know, that eagle's nest is high up in a tree. They build them in areas that aren't easily accessible for that reason. But you can get to it. It would take a lot of work, but I think that there's always a solution.
Yeah. Can you tell me a bit more about that? If you were to get permission to intervene and actually go up there, do you know how you would go about it?
I think it would be a multifaceted plan. You would have different groups involved. I think the fire department would have to be involved. You know, we have our fall safety, but you would have to have people who know how to do this, like people who fell trees for a living would be really useful right now. Wildlife officials who have experience with birds of prey. There is access down by the coast. We just saw a boat come in about 50 feet from the nest. So there are ways to access that without coming down from the cliff.
How dangerous would it be? I'm sure the parents, the eagles, wouldn't be too happy to see people, fiddling with their eaglet. So how dangerous would it be in terms of the eagles even attacking someone who goes?
Well, this is why your average person doesn't do something like this. You know, it requires training with birds of prey. It requires proper PPE. It requires equipment to cover the nest and yourself while you're up there. I mean, it's a quick job. You're not taking the eaglet. You're just snipping off this plastic and getting out of there as quickly as possible. But it's being done. I mean, eagles' nests are accessed all over the world, the same as, you know, osprey nests are and other things. So there are ways to go about it, but it does take a lot of planning and it takes a lot of teamwork. But I think, you know, Newfoundland's capable of taking that on. I think we have those resources if we want to use them.
Yeah, and bird rescue is what you do. What did you think when you first heard about this situation?
Oh God, we just wanted to help because we've seen these situations, and the longer you wait, the worse the situation gets. And then you end up with an eagle who, even by the time you intervene, he can't fly, you know, and then it's too late. So intervention earlier is always better. It's always better for him. You know, it's not about us. It's a great feel-good story. People love the eagles here. Many photographers come here. That's how we found out about him. But you know, it's about the eagle and him being able to leave and migrate with his family when they go.
Well, Karen Goss, this is a really popular spot. Lots of people walking through here, lots of eyes on that nest. So I'm sure people will be watching and waiting to see how this gets resolved, if it gets resolved. So thank you so much for coming up here and talking to me about it.
Oh, well, thanks for covering this and making people aware.
Yeah, well, Karen Gossa says she initially reached out to the provincial wildlife department, but the location of the nest means it's a federal jurisdiction. So we reached out to Parks Canada, and we were told that they are aware of the situation and they're keeping an eye on it.
a proper screening, and a baffling device should be used to prevent sparks from escaping and carrying a fire extinguisher in case you do happen to spark a fire, because we know people in this province are quite active on their off-road vehicles, so that's another precautionary measure for them.
Well, that's Forestry Minister Elvis Lovelace stressing to ATV users the importance of forest fire prevention and the dangers of causing sparks. A province-wide fire ban is in effect this evening. We'll have more from Labrador coming up. We're counting down to our special program about the story of Newfoundland's National War Memorial on June 25th. But the memorial we know today could have looked very different if they hadn't fired the sculptor at the last minute. Beverly Bennett, an archivist at the rooms, shared the story with Here and Now's Terry Roberts.
In 1923, when they're hoping to unveil this for the 1st of July 1924, they fired the sculptor. Now, Basil Gatto is an incredible sculptor. He did Fighting Newfoundland statue, he did all the caribou memorials, but him and Nangle and the architect, they were all butting heads about the sculptures that were being created for the National War Memorial. In particular, this sailor right here. So this is meant to represent the Royal Naval Reserve, but here we have a shirtless sailor holding a gun, holding a rifle. And even the commanding officer of the Calypso at this point says, what is going on with Basil Gatto in these statues? Nangle writes back and says, well, Gatto doesn't quite seem to be understanding my vision for this monument. I've told him this isn't really what we need. This needs to be replaced with a ramrod or a swab. This can't be a rifle. But here's the model, the clay model, which never does get cast because just a few months later, they fire Basil Gatto. Nangle has reached an end with it. The telegram just says, Gatto is fired. By the time Gatto was fired, they've gotten much, much lower quotes from other sculptors across Europe. And that's why they move on. They hire Ferdinand Blundstone and Gilbert Bayes to actually create the final sculptures that we see now. So it could have been a very different looking monument.
Well, the heat dome is still hovering over much of central and eastern Canada.
It really is best to stay inside during those peak hours, of which are really kind of 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And if you don't have air conditioning inside, keep all your blinds down, curtains closed, things like that to stop the sun from getting directly into your house or your apartment.
Heat warnings are in effect in 6 provinces, stretching from Ontario to here in Newfoundland and Labrador. Parts of Ontario got a bit of relief with thunderstorms this morning, but the provincial government says electricity usage is being pushed to near record levels. Atlantic Canada is getting the brunt of the heat today. Temperatures are set to hit the high 30s there with the humidex. It'll feel much hotter. Hot, humid conditions are expected to last until tomorrow for most places, but people in southern Ontario could suffer until Sunday. A heat dome is also affecting much of the U.S. Midwest and Northeast. Well, a strike at WestJet has been averted for now. The airline's mechanics were set to walk off the job tonight. Both sides have agreed to resume negotiations. More than 670 unionized mechanics rejected a tentative deal last week. Their union says the company is offering wages that are 30% less than those of other North American airlines. WestJet wants binding arbitration, but the union is opposed. The airline had canceled 50 flights as a preventative measure. It says passengers should check the status of flights today. Well, celebrated Canadian actor Donald Sutherland has died. His family announced his passing this afternoon. Born in St. John, New Brunswick, Sutherland's film and television career spanned 7 decades. He won many awards, including a Primetime Emmy and 2 Golden Globes.
Looks like we're gonna find ourselves another bridge.
Sutherland, seen here in The Dirty Dozen, appeared in many other popular films, including Clute, Ordinary People, and The Hunger Games. He's been described as the best actor never to have won an Oscar for a role, but he received an honorary Oscar in 2017. Sutherland was also an Officer of the Order of Canada. He was married 3 times and had 5 children, including Kiefer, a well-known actor in his own right. Donald Sutherland died after a long illness. He was 88.
everybody in Happy Valley Goose Bay, everybody who knows somebody who's been displaced, is doing their part to help these people who have had to leave their homes. And please make sure that you also consider the mental health issues and the stress and strain that goes with that, the anxiety that's created in such a quick fashion. There are provincial supports for people who have been displaced. Please avail of the Bridge the Gap program or call 811. But for all of us who are not from Churchill Falls, please do the right thing and check on our neighbors. Make sure that they're feeling okay. Make sure that they have the supports that they need in Happy Valley or wherever else they've been displaced across our beautiful province. We've done it before. I know we'll do it again, but just a gentle reminder to do the right thing, to do the Newfoundland and Labrador thing, and look after each other in this time of stress.
And of course, that's Premier Andrew Furey speaking earlier today about the ongoing forest fires. So let's return now to Happy Valley Goose Bay, where Peter Cowan has the latest from the evacuation center that was ready to receive hundreds of displaced people from Churchill Falls.
This is where the evacuees have come first in Happy Valley Goose Bay. After driving over the road 3 hours from Churchill Falls, they all registered here at the YMCA, which is now being used as a shelter. But just as fast as people showed up here, people from town also showed up to offer them an empty camper or a spare bedroom, showing them kindness in a difficult time.
Yeah, we've had some of those come from away experiences. I'm very pleased and proud to say, you know, some folks actually were showing up, and I was looking at them. They were there last night. They were kind of in the background, and as families were coming in and wondering what they were going to do, and it was going to be a few hours before we set up all the mattresses that we needed here and at other shelters, they just reached out and said, do you want to come to my home?
The fire is only a couple kilometers from Churchill Falls, and the strong winds today have been whipping it up. Fortunately, it sits on the other side of the Churchill River, and as long as that is the case, they're pretty confident that the fire won't harm the community, but they don't know what Mother Nature has in store. There are some people who are still left behind in order to keep the massive hydroelectric plant running and keep the lights on not just across Labrador, but in Quebec as well. Everyone here is anxious to find out just when they might be able to go home, and today the Premier said it's likely to be at least a couple of days, maybe even longer. They are hoping that some help from the rest of Canada may speed up that process. They've asked for 2 water bombers and other specialists to come help fight this fire. Peter Cowan, CBC News, Happy Valley Goose Bay, Labrador.
Well, the warm temperatures on the Avalon have been drawing people to the water. Some took their canoes, kayaks, and paddle boards and hit a St. John's Pond last night. It was an attempt to shape a giant number 75. Why? Have a look.
Tonight we're focusing our Wednesday night paddle on celebrating the 75th anniversary of the Provincial Confederation. So we are going to attempt with our canoes and kayaks to form a 75 up here on George's Pond. Hazen Scarth, who is leading the efforts this evening, had an idea at a previous anniversary, but it didn't quite come together to try to make the number on the pond. So it all came together tonight, and we are going to try to make the 75. Floats were placed, but of course with the Newfoundland weather and the wind, they may have turned into an 85 instead of a 75, but we'll do our best. So we're going to gather out, a whistle will get blown, we'll all have our assigned positions in the numbers. We'll go to that location and do our best to hold location so folks can snap some photographs of that. Then we're going to all just go for a paddle, which is what we usually do on a Wednesday night, and then they'll blow the whistle again and we'll give a second go. I think we said the minimum was 30 boats. We were hoping for 50, and I think we've got 40 registered. On the back of Hazen's car over in the parking lot is a 75 with little dashes representing the length of each watercraft, and people have signed up for their location. So when the whistle goes, that's where we're supposed to try to paddle. And a really good paddling skill is called holding position. And tonight on the pond, that will be a great challenge given the wind. The true aim is to come together in paddling, which is what we do all summer. We're so excited that the weather has finally broken so that we can be the safe paddling advocates that we are, and we can enjoy each other's company on the water. And if we get a few folks interested in what we're at, all the better.
Looks like they had a lot of fun. Well, that wraps up this edition of Here and Now for this evening. We'll continue, of course, to follow the developing wildfire situation in Churchill Falls, Labrador. Of course, hundreds of evacuees will be spending another night away from home, anxiously awaiting word of the situation in their hometown. You can always check out our website, cbc.ca/NL, for any updates. And Ryan mentioned earlier some good news about the forecast. There could be some showers on the way and a bit of a cool down, so that's some good news. Well, that's it for us. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us. We hope you can join us again tomorrow. Good night.